there, I am Kara Dymond, author of The Autism Lens, and I've been doing something called Conversations with Kara for a couple of episodes now. Rename this one a little bit differently, Conversations with Kara and Maja, because we had such a great conversation that I don't think it will be the last one we do together. My friend Maja is here. She is an autistic psychologist from Denmark, and we have a conversation about schooling, autism, neurodivergence, and all sorts of wonderful connections. We hope you enjoy.
All right, hi.
Hi, how's it going?
Pretty good, pretty good. Yeah, it's been a rough year.
It has definitely been a rough year. How
Yeah.
and you're in Copenhagen?
I'm outside of Copenhagen, but in Denmark and in that general area of Denmark. Yes.
It's so strange that like this is going on all over the world,
Yes.
you know? And
Yes. And at the same time, it's really different in each country,
yes,
depending on, how each country has handled things.
yeah.
Um, and really just going all the way back to the beginning, there's such a difference between how Denmark and how, our neighbors in Sweden and Norway have handled it.
Yes.
And we can see those differences now, even still.
Mhm.
So, and I imagine it's the same for you.
We are in the throes of things. We're in our third lockdown right now, and
Yeah.
you know, what can I say? It's been rough.
It's definitely been interesting. I think I'm quite lucky that I live in Denmark because I don't know. If, maybe it's also because I was at the end of my master's degree, so I was writing my thesis, which means I was home anyways. For most of that, my internship did get quite strange because it was sort of cut in half by the lockdown. But aside from that, I've pretty much been home the entire time, so my life really hasn't been disrupted so much. And Denmark has, yes, we've had lockdowns, but there've also been periods where things have been almost normal.
Yes. Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, the summer was actually almost, things were opening up again, and then around, I think it was October, everything sort of shut down again.
Yeah.
And now it's like, well, you can go to physiotherapy, and they're now opening stores again.
Yeah.
So things are sort of opening up, and yes, there's hand sanitizer everywhere, and you have to wear a mask wherever you go and all of that. But other than that, it's fine,
Yeah.
sort of.
Are people generally compliant about mask wearing?
In Denmark, yes.
Oh, good.
Yes. Yeah. People in Denmark are, I mean, there's always the rebels.
Yes.
There's always the anti-authoritarian crowd.
Yeah.
But in general, Danish people are very trusting of our authorities in general.
Yes. Okay, so that's a big cultural difference because there
Yeah.
seems to be quite a schism in society here about
Yeah.
rights, personal freedoms, and looking
Yeah,
out
and
for others.
yeah, definitely. And we do have people complaining about that here, and we do have that discussion as well going on, because it is a balance between, how much freedom can you take away from people before you get that backlash. So it is an ongoing conversation, but I think in general, when you tell Danes you have to have a seat reservation when you go on a train, we're going to make them free, but you have to have it, then people are like, oh, that's a hassle, but fine. That's the general sort of
Yeah.
vibe here.
I
Yeah.
remember seeing like a video early days into the pandemic when we were all
Mhm.
supposed to start wearing masks. And the video was of like maybe the late 70s or early 80s when they started introducing seatbelt laws in Canada and all of these people who were
Oh,
outraged by this. And I thought,
oh
well,
my gosh.
it actually makes me feel a little bit better because people will come around, right? People will eventually adjust to new expectations.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. And they will.
Yeah.
They will. Yeah. So it's, yeah.
So how, like, I know for me, I'm better at telling my students how to manage stress and like working with them on coping strategies than
Mhm.
myself, but I'm definitely trying to manage stress during the pandemic. And I have to say the havening that you taught me really helped.
Oh,
Uh,
good.
I really
Good.
love it.
I'm
Yeah.
so glad.
What have you been doing to cope with everything going on?
Well, I like structure. I like systemizing things. You know, I'm very much a planner.
Me too.
And I do hate it when plans don't work out the way I want them to. But throughout this entire pandemic, you know, from the very beginning, I had these discussions with people who would say, oh, you know, the lockdown, it's going to be 2 weeks and then everything's going to go back to normal. And my stance was just, no, it's not going to go back to normal. Of course, it's not going to go back to normal. So what I'm going to do is I'm only going to plan those 2 weeks ahead where I know what's happening. And at some point before those 2 weeks are over, the government will, you know, put out a statement saying what's going to happen now. And then I'll adjust to that. So it's really been, you know, short bursts of planning and then just trying to let go of expectations. And I'm not very good at that, but
Easy
that's what I've been trying. You know,
Yeah.
it's a very sort of, I guess it's kind of a mindfulness sort of approach
Yeah.
to structure and planning. It's very sort of, just let go. It's fine. You know, just let it happen. It's
Yeah,
okay.
I'm trying. But here what happens is like, so we went back to school after the Easter weekend on the Tuesday because Easter Monday is a holiday here. So
Yeah.
we're back on the Tuesday, and then Tuesday, right at the end of the school day, the government announced everyone's going online tomorrow. So there's never
Oh
time
gosh.
to adjust.
Oh gosh. No.
You know, so it's like it's always like these moments of panic, you know, for everyone. So it's a
Right.
collective
And
panic.
you're a teacher, so that's really hitting hard for you.
Yeah, yeah, and all the families, and you just feel so heartbroken for everyone.
Oh my gosh.
I
Yeah.
feel safer at home, so it was actually quite nice. It was like the announcement came, and it just the relief hit me. The relief, and
Yeah.
I was so much less anxious and less irritable. So
Oh, that makes sense.
yeah,
Yeah. No, that sounds really stressful with those short deadlines for the new information. I mean, here our teachers complain as well that the announcements are, you know, they're not given enough time, but you know, here they've got, you know, at least the weekend,
okay, there you
which
go.
is not working days, which is why everyone is very upset that
Yeah,
they're not given working days to adjust.
exactly.
And you know, I get that, you know, do still complain about that, but it's, I can tell that it's definitely not as bad as, you know, being told from one day to the next, just
Yeah, switch.
switch it up. Wow.
So
Gosh, I'm feeling luckier and luckier.
yeah, exactly. But it must have been so nice though, like to be doing your thesis during this time when you can't really go out and do things anyways. Did you find it's helped you to have
Um,
more time at home?
I mean, yes and no. I'm lucky because I do have a home office, so I'm able to work from home and have a decent amount of space and not feel, you know, too locked in.
Yeah.
But when it's every day, all day, and there's nowhere for you to go, and there's no breaks.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, I do like routine and I do like planning, but I'm also a person that if I have no choices,
Yes.
um, I get I get really frustrated and I start to like push back against,
Yeah.
you know, the frames that sit
Yeah.
around me. Um, one of my colleagues, who actually used to be my psychologist, she works a lot with pathological demand avoidance.
Yes.
And, you know, as she says to me, you're not very pathologically demand avoidant, but it's there, you know, it's there. And I think for me is the thing is that I'm very good at hiding it from my surroundings,
Yes.
but I really do get those very sort of anxious, oh no, oh no, I can't get the flexibility in my surroundings that I need them to have towards me, but that I can't give back to them. It's very sort of, so in this lockdown, you know, I'm writing my thesis, and I know that I should be writing my thesis. I know that this is where all of my time is supposed to go, but there's a part of me that's like, you know, can I just have one Saturday in a month where I can go and see a movie, you know, do something, anything else. And the longer that went on for, the more that sort of, you know, it just dragged me down.
Yes.
And I ended up having really severe stress symptoms for the entire last 2 months, to the point where my supervisor was asking me if I wanted to extend my thesis, because she was recognizing, you know, that these were very severe stress symptoms and that I should probably take a break. But as I told her, if I postpone it and I have an additional 2 months, I'm just going to be this stressed for an additional 2 months, because the world, it's not going to change. It's not going to get better. I need to actually get it done and be done with it and get it out of my head, because it was the combination of the lockdown, pandemic, not having the flexibility around me, and having this huge thing that I was trying to complete, and that I was very perfectionistic about, because you know,
it's your baby.
Well, you know it as well. I mean, you have a PhD, so you probably know it even better. But when you're writing something that means so much to you, and is a topic that you feel so strongly about, you do get that sense of, I want it to be perfect. I want it to be really good. But the stress also takes over, and it's like, you just have to be done with it.
Yes, for sure. No, there comes a point where it just has to be done. It doesn't matter if it's good or great or anything. Just, it's good enough.
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean,
it's hard to do.
Maybe I'm too perfectionistic, but even when I was having those thoughts that, you know, as long as it passes, I don't care, just get it out of the world, just make it go away. Even when I had those thoughts, you know, I could still recognize, if I only get a passing grade for this, I'm going to feel so ashamed that I didn't put in the work for it to get better.
And you know, it's really interesting you say that, because I remember reading a study about shame versus guilt, and a lot of autistic people feel shame rather than guilt for things. So they internalize, I'm a bad person because I didn't do enough, or I made one bad decision, or, you know, instead of feeling guilty. So yeah, shame's a big emotion, isn't it?
It's a really big emotion, but it's also, I think for me, there's a combination of wanting to live up to my own expectations, wanting to live up to the expectations that I think other people have of me, and then wanting to prove others wrong about their expectations of me. Because as an autistic person, when you're diagnosed, you're told all of these things that, you know, you can't do this because you're autistic. You just can't do this. And there's going to be people in your life that, because you're now handicapped, even if you weren't before, in their minds, you know, even if they didn't perceive you as handicapped before, that you were just weird or something. Now you have a diagnosis, now you're handicapped, or now you're disabled, or you're something. They now will expect you to not be able to do things that they might otherwise expect you to be able to do.
And so it's this double pressure.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, one of those things was definitely getting an education, and just the idea that I might someday be able to hold down even a part-time job. You know, I was told when I was diagnosed not to expect you know, to have friends, to have a romantic life, or to have, you know, a normal job or education, or, you know, just basically all of those life expectations that you have, toss them aside. And I was diagnosed when I was 16.
What a terrible message to receive, especially at
I know, I know.
that
And
age.
yeah, and I think that in part it had to do with the fact that I was 16 years old and I was dreaming of being a pop star, and they were wanting to check me
Yeah.
on that. You know, they were wanting to tell me, you know, you can't just do things like that. And maybe I could have, maybe I couldn't have, who knows. But you know, a part of me as a 16-year-old goes, okay, so I have these professionals and I have these family members and people telling me that I'm not going to be able to do those things.
Yeah.
And so I believe it because they're the adults and they're the professionals and they know things. And at the same time, it's like, excuse my language, but fuck you, you don't get to tell me what I can and cannot do.
Yeah.
And so it's now almost 20 years later. It took a lot of work.
Yeah.
But I had that, you know, still, I think, anger and pride that I was going to prove those people wrong.
Yes.
So getting a passing grade was just not good enough.
Yeah, no, I completely get that too.
But I got an A, so it's fine. It's fine.
You're happy. And wow, that makes me think so many things too, because like as someone who is neurodivergent, but I haven't been diagnosed to the full extent of my neurodivergence for sure.
No.
I've always sort of, nothing has held me back that way. Like I remember in first year of university, there was like a playwriting contest. I've never written a play. Okay, I'm going to enter. You know, like
Yeah.
I never knew there were things I couldn't do, and now in adulthood, it's sort of hitting me in the face a little bit. But that
But I
kind
mean,
of stuff never held me back. Yeah.
but is it okay for you to talk about what you were diagnosed with?
So I didn't even
Oh,
know. I mean, I suspected, but my parents told me in my 20s that I tested positive. Positive. I was gifted, diagnosed gifted in elementary school. They
right.
didn't choose to put me in a gifted program. I think they wanted me to like socialize normally. Although, like, I've always been the oddest person in the room. Let's not, you know, not
Yeah.
sure it worked. But so giftedness was the only thing that I've been told. But I have found my house keys in my refrigerator. I'm so organized, super organized at work. I have great hyper focus. But at home, it's sort of like a disaster. Keeping on top of all the adulting things is really tough for me.
Adulting sucks. Can we just agree on that?
Worst. It's the worst. And I don't, you know, the good thing is I will always be young at heart. And I feel like growing up socially, like I had some friends. I switched schools a lot, so then there were lots of times I didn't have friends. I feel like I really found my people in my 30s, you know?
Oh yeah.
This is like the best time of my life socially as an adult.
I think that's very common. I think for neurodivergent people, you know, finding your people, it tends to happen kind of along with the acceptance of yourself as neurodivergent.
Yeah.
So when you accept, you know what, I'm weird, or I'm a freak, or I'm whatever word you put on it, because we all put different words on it, and we all even using words like I'm a freak, you know, some people will say that in a positive way, like proud.
Yeah.
I think, you know, when you reach that sort of acceptance of this is who I am and that's okay.
Yes.
That's when you go and you find your people.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
yeah, no, I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah.
So this giftedness, I've obviously not having been told about it until you were in your 20s, it probably really didn't define your upbringing in such a way. But I have heard from others who were told that they were gifted when they were children, that it actually put quite a strain on them. Do you think that that would have happened for you?
Maybe. I mean, my parents definitely told me I was smart. There were a lot of high expectations for that.
Right.
I knew I was smart just in comparison with classmates, and one of the best teachers I had in
Yeah.
elementary school in grade 8. So he had this program where we could pick. He had like a list of math tasks, and you picked a certain number, and there was levels of
Yeah.
challenge, and same with literacy. And he gave the rest of the class Animal Farm to read, and he gave me 1984. So I had teachers who differentiated quite a bit. And it was interesting because I like 1984 is one of my favorite books to this day.
Yeah.
But it was the first time I'd read a book that ended so devastatingly, heartbreakingly. Like I was in a depression for several weeks afterwards. Like it changed my life. It legitimately made me more cynical about life. This is Abby here on my lap. You'll see her tail. So like I knew, and then because I switched schools a lot, I was always sort of like the smart kid. I sometimes got made fun of for being smart and nerdy.
Yeah.
And you try to hide it sometimes. And then other times you're like, oh, well, they either like me or they don't. I don't care, you know?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I think for me that happened in my teen years as well. It actually very much came along with the diagnosis. And I guess this is where my sort of rebellious side kind of, I had, when I got my diagnosis, one of the things that a family member told me not to tell people, because, you know, I might, at the time I was working as a model, and I had friends, you know, in school and stuff, and a family member sort of told me, you know, don't tell your modeling agency that you've been diagnosed, and don't tell your friends and stuff, because, you know, they might not react well to that. And so I had that sort of, well, you know, if they don't react well to it, then they're probably not my friends, are they?
Yeah. And it's like you're the same person, the same model. Like
yeah, exactly. And with the modeling agency especially, it was kind of, well, they should probably know if I'm working with them. I mean,
yeah. Well, that's the logical assumption, right?
It is the logical assumption. I had no comprehension of why someone would discriminate against an autistic person. And I think, you know, at the time I hadn't heard of autism before. You know, this was back in, oh my gosh, 2003, 2004. I didn't know what autism was. So I had just been diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, and I had no comprehension of that people would discriminate against that. So I was just like, I don't care. I'll tell them. And well, I didn't really much care about my modeling gig either way. So, you know, if I lost that, that would be fine with me. You know, yeah.
Now, when you
Weird thing, but
what led to you being diagnosed?
You know, that's actually a weird thing. I think my mother had always known that I was different. I always knew as well.
Yeah.
I hadn't put words on it outwardly, but I always knew. Even back in like kindergarten, I had these thoughts in the back of my mind that, you know, I'm not like the other kids. I'm different. I'm weird somehow, and that's, you know, that's fine. But my mother always knew that there was something. And I did go through severe depression in early childhood, and they didn't catch anything else at that point. And then as I was approaching sort of the end of my elementary school years, elementary in Denmark is up until 9th grade and optionally 10th grade. So it's until you're 15, 16. And so I was approaching sort of the end of elementary school. And as long as you're still in elementary school, it's a lot easier for you to get a referral to a psychologist or a psychiatrist. So like any sort of help from the system is easier to get as long as you're still in school and as long as you're still under 18 as well. And so there was a point where we had moved, and my mother, still had those thoughts of there's something here. I won't use her phrasing because it's discriminatory.
Yes.
But she did want to have someone look into what was going on with me.
Yeah.
And at the time, Asperger's syndrome and autism were very much boys' diagnoses. Girls just didn't get that diagnosis or those diagnoses. In our system, the ICD system, it's still separate diagnoses at this time. So they were very much boys' diagnoses. And so it actually took 3.5 years for them to realize and recognize that what they were seeing was Asperger's.
Wow.
And in today's terms, autism.
No, like you're a psychologist, basically. So
I am now. Yes.
Do you think the profession's gotten better at recognizing neurodivergence in all its forms? Still a ways to go.
Yes, no.
Yeah.
Sort of. I think in some ways we're recognizing more of sort of the spectrums of neurodivergence in all of its branches, in all of its directions. We're investigating that. We're slowly sort of figuring it out. But there are a lot of psychologists and psychiatrists who, when they finish their education, they go, I'm now educated.
Yes, and that's it.
Yes, and then they don't follow up on that, and they don't, continue learning. There's a lot of others who are very good at, seeking out new knowledge and specializing and being curious in general. But there's a lot of others who aren't. And there's still very much, I feel, a deficit view of neurodivergence.
That's how we diagnose it, and it's terrible because
yes, but I think that's also to do with where diagnoses come from, what we use diagnoses for. So when I talk about autistic people, well, what I will say is, there is the area of autism where you have support needs that you need others to actually be a part of your life to make sure that you can function, and your support needs are at such a level or take such a form that you need a diagnosis. And so that's the sort of diagnosable autism that's sort of there. And then there's a Venn diagram kind of where you have, the phenotype of autism, where you have the traits and you have, you're neurodivergent in the same way, but your support needs mean they take such a form or are so minor that you don't actually need the diagnosis. And that, to me, is very much the difference between, people say that we need to change the diagnostic criteria. And of course, we always will need to see, do we need to change the diagnostic criteria? Is there something that we've missed? But the diagnostic criteria are deficit focused precisely because we're looking at, does this person have support needs? Do they need a diagnosis so that they can get help from the system that is in place? And the only reason the diagnoses work like that is because our system works like that. And, we have to actually overhaul so many governmental systems of support in order to overhaul the way we look at diagnoses. And we can't overhaul the diagnostic system before we do the other thing, because if we do it the wrong way around, then people lose access to support.
Yes, and they fall through the cracks.
Yes, and it's very much a catch-22, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Now, I was talking with my friend Bruce, who was diagnosed autistic in his early 50s. We were just talking last week about this, and we were sort of musing about ADHD and autism, and are they that distinct? You know what I mean? Like, that's like part of the Venn diagram where it's almost a perfect overlap in a lot of ways. I know that my boyfriend is ADHD, and yeah, he's very different from my students, but
yeah,
almost all of my students have ADHD traits.
Yeah, I think,
I feel like maybe we're not thinking about it right yet. Like, I feel like we don't have it perfectly yet.
No, as a profession, we've not figured out the puzzle of what is ADHD and what is autism really. And it's very much an investigation, and it should continue to be that. What I think is that I like to think in terms of Venn diagrams, and diagnoses are tools. They're not truths. They're not definitions.
Yeah.
They're just tools. You have these sorts of support needs. You have these sorts of challenges in your life. That sort of fits into this box. Yes. Sort of. Okay, let's go with that. But you always have to use a diagnosis as a working tool, in terms of self-reflection, in terms of, support, development, learning skills, if that is a thing that you would like to do. That's what a diagnosis is to me. It's not like, okay, here, you're ADHD. That's not what it is to me. But with ADHD and autism, I very much think in terms of that Venn diagram, because I do think that there are parts that don't quite overlap. And I do find that there are autistic people that don't quite fit ADHD. And there's many people with ADHD that really don't, they're not autistic. But they are, challenged in terms of their executive functions and such.
Yeah, for sure.
Executive functions. My favorite term in psychology. What is executive functions? Nobody knows.
There's so many definitions, so many.
Well, it encompasses so many things, I'm just like, executive functions. Yeah, it's your CEO of your brain. That's what it is.
Yeah.
What it is.
Yes, that's the part of my brain that isn't always up to snuff when I need it to be. Yeah. And yet other times it's so great. Like, but I feel like anxiety gets me through everything. I feel like that's my main coping mechanism. Like, I'm like, I have to get this done now. It has to be perfect. I have to do it. If I don't do it, I'll forget, and I will.
Yeah, and when you get stressed enough, that's when you're suddenly able to start a task.
Yes, exactly. The pressure has to be there. Like, I for some reason, I did the math calculations of our meeting wrong, and I thought I still had lots of time. And then you were like, I'm almost ready. And I went, I better go get dressed and...
shit.
Makeup on. Exactly. And luckily, my hair, like, I took it out of a bun, and it looks okay. Because I was like...
It looks gorgeous.
Yeah, just lucky. Some days I wake up and I look like a 70s rocker or something. So, and it's nice when it all falls in place.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I still have hat hair from having been outside. So in some ways, I'm happy that my hair is so flat, because it doesn't really do anything. But I've also not been to the hairdresser for a while, and I've been outside with my jacket. So now it's just...
Oh, it gets all matted and clumpy.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God. I'm looking forward to hairdressers
Me too. It's been
opening.
January 2020 since I've had it, or 2020, a year and a little bit since I've had a haircut. So
Oh gosh. Yeah, it's
Yep,
a lot, isn't it?
it is.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that you really take for granted.
Yes, exactly.
I do very much understand the people that have just chosen to chop their hair off.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
I
If
get
I
it.
thought I had like the face for it, I would, but you know.
I just can't.
Yeah.
I just can't. It's my
It's also a nice like sensory thing to play with, you know, and
for me it's more of a it's my femininity
yeah.
that's right here. I don't like to wear very feminine clothes most of the time, and due to very sensitive eyes,
Yeah.
most days I can't wear eye makeup. So I can't wear high heels because my feet don't like it.
I hate high heels. I can't do anything that's uncomfortable. Yeah.
Yeah. So you know, if I want to be feminine in some way, for some reason that this is just what I've got. And then nail polish.
Love it.
Those are yeah, those are my expressions of that's my way to express my feminine gender identity is that's what I've got.
If I had like the fine motor skills to do my nails, I would, but I'm like that was another thing in childhood. I remember people trying to fix my writing because I have very messy writing, and just being like, well, it works for me, and I don't like writing because my hand hurts. And then they tried to teach me to type, and I'm still the fastest typer, but I only use 2 fingers and a thumb. I don't need to learn to do it your way. My way works for me. Like, so I've got a stubborn mile long too. So, yeah.
Oh, that's great. Did you also do the thing where like when you were learning to write letters and numbers and they weren't perfect, would you sit there and erase them and write them over and over and over again?
I can't remember if I did that. I feel like I came to a point very, like probably by middle school where I was just like, it is what it is, you know? And I don't like wasting my time, and I can't do it neatly. So you're stuck with how it is, teacher or parent, you know?
I have, there's specific letters that I just cannot write pretty. And I remember back in, you know, grade 1, 2, when I would do my writing assignments and my math assignments by hand, and I would get so frustrated and I would spend so much time trying to make it pretty enough.
Yes.
And I remember writing like the number 5. I really like looking at the number 5. It's pretty.
My favorite. It's my favorite. I also
it's a pretty,
it aesthetically pleasing. Yeah.
Exactly. It's a pretty number to look at, but I could never make it quite perfect. Yeah. And so I would practice writing that number over and over and over again. And 9, I just gave up on.
Yeah.
I can't do a pretty 9. I can do a pretty 6, but I can't do a pretty 9. And it's just, it was one of those things that really tormented me as a child, because I was like, I'm supposed to be able to write pretty.
Yes.
Why can't I do it?
And other people could, and I think I gave up because I saw like I will never get to the level of Michelle over there, you know. But actually, it's funny that we're talking about this, because I was thinking the other day when I was maybe about 10 years ago, because I have to renew my license now. 10 years ago, I had to go back to get another license, and I think I'd done my previous one maybe 7 years before that. And you have to like do your signature again, and the person was like, "This isn't your signature." And I was like, I know, because I'm now an adult and I now have a faster signature rather than my one from when I was 16, where I tried to be really careful. She wouldn't give me my license until I forged my signature to look like it was when I was 16. And I had to do it like 20 times, and I almost burst into tears. And it was like, but this isn't my signature anymore. What if I had broken my arm, right? Like, you don't have a mechanism in place for people's signatures to evolve? And maybe I just got a
Oh
grumpy
my
agent,
gosh.
but it was so bad. So now I have like every time I go, I'm gonna have to like forge my signature, which never looks like I can't do that. I don't have the
How
skills.
how are you supposed to have the same signature throughout your entire life?
Yeah. Whereas like the one I have now, I think would probably work because I do the K and then it's like a scribble. So that scribble can be consistent, you know?
Yeah, I have some loops that sort of
Yeah.
repeat, and
Yeah.
then that's that.
Exactly.
That's fine. No, in Denmark we use our social security numbers for just about everything. I don't I've never had someone compare my signatures from two places and be like, this isn't, they don't do that. They don't look at that here. It's just,
She was very grumpy, so it might have been like she just wanted to find something. I don't
she had a bad day.
And I came in and I'm like a positive, upbeat person, so maybe that rubbed her the wrong. You know when you're like someone's really grumpy and
Yeah.
then someone who's like
Yeah.
happy.
Have you ever, no, this is nothing to do with autism or anything neurodivergent, I think, but those days when you're just feeling really irritable for some reason, and then somebody's playing really happy music, and then that just becomes a song that you hate because now it's associated with like
Yes.
mocking your pain.
I used to live next door to a harpist, and he would play at like 2 a.m. I now hate.
Oh no!
I hate the harp so much. It like triggers this like anger inside of me, just because of that. Yeah.
Now I'm afraid I've done that to neighbors with my singing and my piano playing.
Oh, as long as it's like at a reasonable hour, it's fine. But
I don't think I've ever done it later than 10 or 11 p.m.
Yeah, this guy was like 2, 3, 4 in the morning, and it wasn't necessarily nice playing. It was almost like if you were to like put Shostakovich on the harp, like it was very like dissonant and bizarre.
Oh gosh.
So then it's not predictable either, which is like
No.
it's another note. There's
Well, I
another
mean,
note.
if you're going to listen to harp playing, then it should be, you know,
Yes, relax.
melodic, and you should be able to somewhat predict
Yeah.
as you. I don't know if other people do this with music, but even the first time I hear a song, I start to be able to predict the tune.
The pattern.
Yeah. And I don't know if this is a neurodivergence thing. I definitely know people that don't.
Yeah.
And then I know people who, once they've heard a song one time, then they can remember all the lyrics, but not the music. And it's very odd, but I will like start to identify patterns and make up harmonies as soon as I hear a piece of music.
Yeah, I will make up harmonies sort of, and sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong. So I don't think my pattern recognition is the greatest. But my friend Bruce, I was telling you about, he plays improvised music 3 times a week. And my boyfriend walked in during one of the sessions while I was listening, and he immediately said, "Oh, I see the pattern." So there's that neurodivergence and patterns. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know if it's a neurodivergence thing. Maybe it is.
Yeah.
We should do a poll.
We should do a poll, a Twitter poll.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Autistic people around the world, neurodivergent people.
Weigh in. Yeah.
Do you easily recognize patterns in music?
Yeah. When I listen to music, if there's no lyrics, I actually just go to a place in my brain where I do like storytelling, where I see almost like a movie in my mind. I don't hear it, but it's like a silent film, and so it follows the musical through.
That's really interesting. I have an autistic friend who has synesthesia, and they associate colors with music, and actually with all sound. So I've sort of been told what the color spectrum of my voice is.
Yes.
To that person. Yeah, it's really fascinating, and it's so interesting as well to hear, because you know there are voices that you instantly like to hear or that you instantly don't like to hear.
Yeah.
And for this person, the colors associated with with, you know, liking a voice or not liking a voice aren't necessarily consistent,
Oh,
and
interesting.
aren't consistent with the colors that they like or don't like.
Oh,
But if they don't like the color of someone's voice,
it can
then
affect.
it's very difficult for them to look
Yeah.
past that.
Wow.
Yeah. But
I
with music, it's like it will be like paintings that evolve.
Wow.
Yeah.
That would be amazing. I had a student who names had a taste and a smell. And
Oh,
so then she was
wow.
telling everyone what their what the taste and smell of their names was, and then one kid goes, "What's mine?" She was like, she didn't want to say because it was.
Oh no.
Yeah, yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah. Oh man.
Oh.
Um,
Right, so this was all things that we hadn't even planned to talk about.
I know. We wanted to get around to school systems and how we're going to burn it down, not literally, and
No, but
yeah.
let's though. I mean, we need to, okay, what's the school system like in Canada?
So it's each province has their own school system and their own curriculum.
Oh gosh.
Because we are such a big country, and
Yeah.
so in Ontario, like you have your elementary school is well, kindergarten to grade 8, and then high school is 9 till 12, and then post-secondary.
Right.
I find I'm not okay. This is a generalization, but I find supports are not necessarily the most available in high school. We do a really good job at post-secondary in lots of institutions, though it's by institution. And elementary school is sort of hit or miss. It can be really, really supportive if you have a diagnosis, if you've gone through all the steps, but it can be like 2 or 3 years on a wait list to even see a psychologist through the school board. So a private diagnosis is like $3,000, $4,000. So not
Wow.
every child can do that. So I've had children where I've suspected a learning disability, like maybe they can't read. I've put them on the
Yeah.
list, and it's like 4 years later and they haven't been seen.
Wow.
So then they're going off to, and then by the time they're in high school, like that doesn't usually transfer over. So if they haven't seen the school psychologist, school board psychologist, we don't have individual psychologists in schools. Yeah, then you have to start the process again.
Shit.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, it's the wait list for services is very long. And then even if they like maybe you put in a referral for a student who is identified, there's a mental health concern, they might get 3 sessions with a psychologist, but that's like, how is that going to
I mean,
accomplish it?
it's better than nothing,
It is better than nothing.
I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Hmm.
Okay.
We
Right,
are getting
so
better at university. Like, so again, I teach in the summers. I teach at the Ontario Institute for Studies in Education. So I teach people training to be teachers, and we are teaching, how to differentiate and use universal design and how to like just make your environment better from the outset for everybody. So
yeah.
hopefully that starts to make some improvements. The more people feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Accommodating in the classroom for everybody.
Right. Wow. Okay. I mean, in Denmark, it's still it's better, I think, but also just very, very different. So our elementary school obviously goes up to grade 9 and optional grade 10th, and then we have 3 years of high school, where you can actually take a 2-year version instead. We have different sort of versions of high school.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's, university or whatever else you want to pursue goes after that. And for us in elementary school, as I mentioned before, if there is something that could potentially, require some sort of help or diagnosis, then you're sent through the school to a psychologist. So there are school psychologists who are attached to a sort of municipality
Yeah.
or an area in a municipality, depending on the size of it. And then they're sort of in charge of that whole thing. I think the wait lists differ a lot from municipality to municipality, because it's all sort of kept internal, but there's a ceiling on how long you're allowed to make someone wait in the public system until the public system has to, I think, has to offer you a private
Yes.
route.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, but I think our wait lists are somewhere between 6 and 12 months.
Yeah. Well, that's
usually.
cool. Yeah.
But I think it also very much depends on what your challenges are. Yeah.
Now, can you get support without a diagnosis? No, so same.
It would be tricky.
Yes.
You would have to be attending a school that has the resources to make that available to you, and then you're already in a private school.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So public schools are very underfunded.
Yeah.
And have been for a while.
Yes, I feel like neoliberalism is a worldwide trend.
It's very much, we had an overhaul of our system. I think it was back in 2007. Was it? Maybe it's a while ago. And what they did was they made the school days longer.
Oh, wow.
And they made them actually much less structured at the same time. Like there are classes in the school day now.
Yeah.
That it took a couple of years for the teachers to figure out what they were even supposed to do with that time. Because it really wasn't very well defined what this class was even for.
Yes.
And then there's time built into the schedule for doing your homework and having someone to help with your homework. But again, that time is super unstructured, and it's actually led to a really severe increase in stress-related diagnoses in young children. So in the last 10 years or so, we've seen, I think, about a 30% increase.
Wow.
And this is because I think the changes to our school system have been just so severe, and we've introduced testing.
Yes.
In grade 1 already, to see if the children are keeping up with their learning goals. and children are,
yeah, they feel it. Same here.
They feel it.
Big mental health crisis too. Everyone is just so stressed, and there's so much to fit in because it's a prescribed curriculum. Like, you have choice as a teacher, but you have to cover all of the expectations.
Yeah.
To some more focused on than others, but you have so much to cover. It's very regimented. The standardized tests, like, and you're gonna hate this. Our online school, so some people could opt to be virtual this year because of COVID-19. The mandatory time children have to be on is 225 minutes of on-screen time with their teacher to mimic sort of in the classroom. So and kindergarten I think is like 180 or 190 minutes, but that's such a long time to be in front of a computer screen.
Yeah, it really is.
But all these rules, right? All of these rules, rather than letting, I think we're losing teacher autonomy and professionalism. And I mean, you have to have standards, because, you will have people who are very comfortable with freedom and some teachers who won't know what to do. But I could never, and I don't teach the set curriculum. I teach an alternative program that has like suggestions, but I can teach to the kids in my classroom. And that's the only thing I ever want to do. I don't.
No, definitely. Definitely. I think the whole teacher autonomy thing is a really big part of we've never had very much wiggle room in our curriculum. Especially in public schools, it's very sort of set. But what's happened with our reform is that teachers have much less time to prepare.
Yes.
And they have much less time to give feedback as well. And so, and you know, we're not paying them. We're not paying our teachers really to do the job they're doing.
Yes.
And the result of this is, of course, that the teachers, even when they are in the classroom, they really don't have the energy to do their jobs properly.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we've increased and increased and increased the class size.
Yes.
And I have to say that for me, as an autistic child, I started out in public school, and we were, I think, 24 kids in those classes back then.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, you know, in the 90s.
Yeah.
And now it's, you know, upwards of 30, 32, I think.
Yes.
And for me, when I switched to private schools that had a maximum of 16 students in the class, that for me made a huge difference in terms of my stress, my learning ability in the classroom, and you know, just my energy, you know, even just being able to focus in the classroom, having that lower number of children, those fewer children, really made a big difference. And that was only a difference of, you know, 4 to 8 students per classroom.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't even that huge difference that it would be today.
Yes.
But just going from 24 children in a classroom to 16,
Yeah.
massive difference.
Yes.
And I can imagine that it is for the teacher as well.
Well, and I teach, so my program's very small, but when I think about teaching grad students, I had 36 grad students, I think, last year, and the year before that I'd had 30. And it takes so much time to give them all feedback. Just a few, so increases your ability or decreases your ability to connect and give them people support. So at elementary and high school, when that's so critical, I can imagine how hard it is with a full class.
Definitely. I think it's a part of why the children are so much more stressed now, is that increased class size. I don't think it's actually good for children's mental health at all. I think for me, my best experience in school was the year that I started learning English. I was already at a small private school, and they had classes that were sort of together. So grade 6 and 7 were together, grade 8, 9, 10 were together, and all the way down. So there was kind of this age overlap, and where classes would switch. So if you were in 7th grade, then when you're in 8th grade, you suddenly have new classmates, but you also relate really well to what are now the 7th graders, because you've just been in their class too. So in 7th grade is when I started learning English. Back then, that was when you started learning. Now I think they start in 1st or 2nd grade. Yeah, they start a lot earlier now. But 6th graders at that time weren't learning English, and we were only 5 7th graders. And so my English classes in 7th grade were suddenly so much time with the teacher.
Wow.
And luckily it was a teacher that I liked quite a lot. And it was also a class that I liked quite a lot. So, but you know, being in a class with 5 students,
yes,
was, you know, my English ability shot through the roof that year, because you have time
exactly
in the class, and you get a much closer alliance with your teacher. It's really such a big difference.
Yeah. Oh, maybe that's what I needed. I don't speak any second language well. So
I only speak English well.
Yeah.
I did have German.
I took first year German at university. It was not a good decision.
You know what? I I can remember words.
Yeah.
And I can remember a song that they taught us. It's basically just a song that says, "I'm Danish, I don't speak German well." But they taught it to us in song form, so I remember that song. But I never took to German, and a part of that I think is actually my auditory sensitivity. Is that German sounds too rough
Yes.
to my ear. So I always gravitated towards English because the sounds in English are so, they're yummy. I can't explain it any other way. You know, I've tried for years and years to find ways to explain it, but English is yummy to listen to. It's soft, it's malleable, it's, you know, and there's different accents to switch between. So I can speak a very sort of American accent, and I can even do a little bit of more California if you want to do that. And then, like, you know, and then you can switch into sort of that very sort of posh Oxbridge English. And it's, you know, even if you switch between those accents, it's still sort of just very, even Oxbridge, which is very posh and quite a harsher sound than the American one, it's still soft.
Yes.
And for me, when you go into German, those sounds, they're actually very close to Danish. So when you speak Danish, you're very much at the back of the throat.
Okay.
The Swedes say that speaking Danish is like speaking with a potato in your mouth. It's sort of but you're very much speaking at the back of the throat.
Yeah.
And German has that same sort of thing for me, where it's, the sounds are very harsh, they're very sort of swallowed. And it triggers me sensory wise to listen to that language. So even though I had a wonderful teacher who was very excited about German, and, you know, her attitude was, it was contagious.
Oh, that's good.
You know, she was a wonderful teacher, really. But I just could not get into German because the sounds were just triggers for me. And now in adulthood, I'm listening to so much K-pop.
Are you?
Yes. And a part of that is that the Korean language is just beautiful to listen to. You know, it's one of those things where I really feel like it's a pillow. It's weird. You know, languages really have, languages are very much a sensory experience for me.
I'm gonna send you, I watched, I think it was on YouTube, I found a BBC documentary, and it was a linguist, and she went around and she documented different dialects in the UK, and she had her central thesis was that the placement in the voice mimicked the land that the people lived on, and it was just fascinating. So I'll send it to you.
That's interesting. That is so interesting. Yes, definitely send that. Oh, that would be so interesting to hear. Cool.
How are you doing time-wise? Because I know.
Well, I have a thing that I have to be at in 20 minutes, but it only takes me like 5 minutes to get there.
Okay.
So we really have a little bit of time to wrap up.
Okay, excellent. All right, let's talk school system. How would you change it?
How would I change it? Oh my gosh.
We're building from the world, building from the ground.
Okay. I think we have to go back to the Renaissance.
Okay.
Yes. And not in terms of what's available for you to learn, but more sort of the learning style where you very much have a mentor, you know, and I'm not very knowledgeable about the Renaissance, but my whole idea of, like, you know, you're learning things that you're interested in.
Yeah.
You're able to explore skills and, you know, academic lines that are interesting and that give you that sense of meaningfulness and enjoyment. I very much think that if we let children learn
Yes.
freely, then they will actually get through the curriculum. And I actually have an example
Okay.
of a school in Denmark where they've tried this. So this is a private school, obviously. And what they've tried to do is pretty much toss out anything that's called a schedule. So what they've done instead is to say to the students, it is your responsibility that you get through X number of Danish classes, math classes, history classes, etc. in the course of the week.
Yeah.
You have to do all of this in the course of the week. But at what time of what day you do it is completely up to you.
Wow.
And so the students will actually just go, you know what, I feel like learning math today.
Yeah.
And then they'll go and do that. And what they've actually found in the school is that they're able to have a lot more neurodivergent children in the classes than traditional public schools and traditional private schools are able to actually handle. And I think this has to do with, when you have neurodivergent children in a classroom, you have children that have specific support needs and that have a specific learning profile, and they may not be able to learn very well in a classroom setting. But when you give them autonomy,
Yes.
and when you give them agency in their own learning, you suddenly see excitement.
Exactly.
And you see engagement.
Yeah.
And these children are learning so well.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that if we give children more autonomy and agency, and we teach them that we trust in their desire to learn, and we trust in their work ethic, and we trust in just them as people.
Yes.
I think that we would see a lot more thriving. I think that we would see children learning much faster. And I think that we would see, in the course of very few years, a steep decline in childhood anxiety and depression.
Wow, I love that. I think throw grades out the window. I think grades are useless.
Definitely.
Descriptive feedback is great. You want to say, wow, this is great. Here's where you can go further. Continue doing this. That's great. I love giving that kind of feedback. And I've thought something similar to you, where almost like students have little pods almost, where maybe everyone's all together for the homeroom, you check in, you do whatever you need to as a big class, but then, this group goes to this thing, and this group go wherever their needs are, whatever they want to study, and then you have options too for other supports. Like if you have a bunch of students who need executive function supports, they can go have a drop-in specialist that they go and work with, who helps them plan how they're going to accomplish things and manage everything. So instead of just inclusion, which doesn't serve everyone well altogether.
No, definitely not.
Still have moments where it's not an accessible subject, but then everyone going off and doing their little things in smaller groups as needed. Yeah.
Yes. I think that we could build a pretty good school.
I think we could too.
There was something that you just said that I had a thought. Damn.
Yeah. Well, we'll build our school. We'll train all the teachers.
Yeah.
We're going to design a curriculum, a curriculum for becoming teachers and understanding neurodivergence better.
Yes. And I think also, well, the thing with this is, of course, that building a school like this and building a school system like this is very resource intensive.
Yeah.
So it is definitely something where governments would have to decide that school and that teachers is something to prioritize.
Yes.
And I think until we realize on the societal level, and until we can, as professionals, until we can reach the politicians that are in charge of making these laws, until we can reach them to explain, you know, how crucial these developmental years are.
Yes, exactly.
It won't be given the resources that are needed.
Yes.
But you know, in studying stress and traumatic stress and toxic stress, as I did for my thesis, you know, the more I learn about stress, the more I can see that first of all, it's the most expensive illness in existence. Stress is. There is nothing that is as expensive as that, because it has long-term, lifelong, not only mental health, but also physical health consequences. And so I really don't understand why we don't pay more attention to it.
Yes, and
Because
especially if you can frame it that way, like,
yeah,
you know,
it causes everything.
yeah, and there's cost. So, like, for governments that tend to think
Yeah.
more costs than people, like,
Yeah.
that's a logical argument that the long-term costs of not investing in these supports.
Exactly. And if you just invest in making first grades 1 through 4
Yeah.
really accessible, and you know, providing that autonomy and agency, and really trying to invest in young children's mental health,
Yes.
20 years down the line, we would see the reduction
Mm-hmm.
in the costs of mental and physical health consequences associated with childhood stress.
Mm.
And right now we're doing the exact opposite.
We are.
And it hurts to see that.
Yeah.
You know, I have acquaintances and colleagues that, you know, children in grade 1 and 2 are burning out.
Yeah.
And what we're doing to these children, just, it's not fair to them. It's really not fair. We're ruining their developmental trajectory.
I agree.
And just causing so much damage to their brains, their nervous systems, and their bodies.
And then they hate school, which, like,
Yes.
I loved school up until a point. You know, I loved school
Yes.
at the beginning, especially, and it's so sad to me that then they might hate learning, they might hate all of these things, reading.
They will. And they associate, you know, school and learning with all of these bad things, with you know, the tests and the stress and the yeah, it's tragic. It really is. And I think if societies, if governments actually put the resources into that,
Yeah.
then it would pay off in the end.
Yeah, pay now or pay later. Yeah.
Well, it's very much that. Very much. So
You're in charge.
yeah, if only we were ruling the world. No. Yeah, I think we should do this again. What do you think?
Yeah, we should do a whole bunch.
Yes, let's.
And then
Yes.
the book comes out, because I know you're working on 2 books.
I'm working on 2 books, and one of them should be out in December or January, and the other sometime next year.
Yeah, so we'll do ones around those too, and you can tell us more about us. You can tell me and my audience of like 3 people.
No, you know, this is definitely going on YouTube as well. And what I'm thinking is that to my dear subscribers and to yours, if you could let us know what you would like us to discuss next time.
Mm-hmm.
Give us some suggestions, put it in the comments, and we will be sure to read them and discuss between us. And we might not get around to everything, but
Probably
you know,
not.
we're making notes of things. Just let us know what you would like us to talk about.
Exactly. Well, thanks so much, and I can't wait till
Thank you.
talk again.
Yeah, definitely. Let's do this again soon.